Okay, hey guys and girls, welcome to the third installment of my modern tutorial, episode number 3, Creating a Model. In today's episode, we'll be looking at the process behind creating your model for use in the Space Engineers, along with a few tips and tricks and good practices to keep in mind. As viewed on the first episode, we use Blender for our 3D modeling software. It's a free professional open source content creator that plays a very important part in most every mod you will see me make. It offers a quick, efficient workflow with the ability to customize your hotkeys. It can appear to be daunting at first, but once you get around the basics of using it, you will appreciate how easy the software is to use. I recommend looking at video and written tutorials alike for Blender. Written Blender tutorials go in much more detail, but the visual aspect of the video tutorial will help one grasp the fundamentals much more quickly. I would also like to recommend looking at modeling videos, so to get inspiration and ideas on how to create certain shapes and/or objects. Some things are not easily done in Blender, such as making a spring, which would require a bit of knowledge before being able to create. On the other hand, some objects are easily created through the use of an add-on. Another suggestion would be to look at the blend files and trying to recreate these models. As with most things in life, your modeling skills will only improve with practice and knowledge. Plenty of videos and tutorials can help you along this path. Before we dive into making our model, I'd like to provide a few tips that can help with the creation of your model. As we go through the rest of this tutorial, I would also like for you to try to replicate my process and get a feel for what is involved in creating our model. I feel that applying what you learned today and throughout the rest of the tutorial will definitely assist in the lessons. Even if you are not a hands-on learner, doing hands-on work will increase your comprehension, if even the slightest. As you may already know, even being better in one learning technique doesn't mean the other learning techniques are void. It just means that it is the dominant learning method, not the one and only method. I know I don't have to say this, but I cannot stress enough that learning in a singular way will not yield the knowledge you get from multiple experiences. Anyways, let's get back on track. When starting your first mod, I'd like to suggest setting up your Blender for a quicker start process. To do this, open up Blender. You'll notice a pop-up when it opens. Just ensure the drop-down is set to Blender and click anywhere on the screen. We want to have our Space Engineer add-on set up in a manner that we don't have to meddle with it every time we start a new project. Blender needs to be set up in this manner as well. Let's start by fixing our scene data properties. We'll move our add-on properties block to the top of our property blocks, so it is convenient without needing to scroll. So this is our scene property block, and this is the engineer's block for the add-on. So, obviously you'll have whatever you plan to use at the top. So let's drag this to the top. Oh, what did I do? So if you click here, you can drag it to the top. So, you'll notice that the export settings are probably highlighted in red. just click the plus sign that is visible beside the input block. The MWM builder, as you may remember in the last episode, was already configured. If this field is blank though, then you'll have to relink the MWM builder in Blender's user preferences. The export subpath will be the location the model will export to. When you click export scene as a block, so this is the location that your model will export to when you click export scene as a block. Update block definition will update the cubeblock.spc file automatically by searching out the subtype ID in the SPC file. Typically this would be the mod name / models / whatever, then further defined in the SPC file located in the mod's data folder. More on that when we begin configuring our SPC files for this mod. We can also see a checkbox to use a custom subtype ID. When you export a block, it'll export with underscore cube size as the suffix. Using this checkbox allows you to have the export name as anything you want it to be without the suffix. Above that is the size of the block and a drop down to determine whether the block is large, small, or both. I've never used mirror block, which I would assume would allow you to provide a model for mirroring purposes. I have also never touched a block specular, which I feel was a specularity setting for DX9. If I'm wrong about this, please correct me in the comment section. But if it is for DX9, then it's I'd like to let you know now, DX9 is no longer compatible with the game. We only use DX11. So, at the top of the add-ons properties block is a checkbox that enables and disables the add-on. This is for the visible cube block frame that appears in the 3D viewpoint. Note that this block is either 2.5 meters for large or 0.5 meters for small when the cube size is defined in the block size drop down. So as you can see, once we go to small, it becomes small, and when we are large, it is large. And if we are large block scaled down to a small, it will again just be large. So we can set the unit scaling to metric so it can be in line with the Space Engineer's unit scaling. So if we go into units, this will probably be set to none. Just go ahead and set it to metric, and that's all. Make sure scale is 1.0, and you don't have to do anything else with that. Your viewport may look a bit different than mine. Click on the camera and delete it. Click on the lamp and delete it. Then click on the cube block that would be in the middle here and delete it if you want. You don't have to delete the cube block, but I deleted the cube block as I don't always start with cube shape. Now go to Files, and then Save Startup File. Or you can go to File and then do Control U, which is the hotkey to do this, to save the startup. If you ever want to restore the factory default, you can do so by going to File and Load Factory Settings, and this will put all this back to the default. Okay, so this pretty much configured Blender to how we want it to always start. There are a few add-ons that I want to suggest, as it made life easier when working on various Space Engineers mods. The add curve, all of this will be done in user preferences under add-ons. Now we've a few add-ons that I want to suggest is add curve extra objects. You'll make sure to put the check mark to enable it. This provides curves that can be manipulated to make knife cuts and even spirals like the one I mentioned earlier. There's also add mesh ant landscape. This is an awesome add-on that I use to create height maps for my planet mods. It's easy to use and makes height map creation hassle-free and enjoyable. Then there is add mesh extra objects, which provides some unique shapes to use, including a teapot and honeycomb. And then there is, let's see, there should be Mesh F2. This is a very useful and convenient tool for creating a series of faces, which I will demonstrate momentarily. And then my last suggestion would be Rigify. And this allows you to quickly rig an object. This is especially helpful for rigging a custom astronaut model. There are plenty more add-ons you can use, but to list everything here, it would require an entire episode in itself. So again, as you've seen in the previous episode, once you have selected your add-ons, just go save user settings, and then your add-ons will be added to the Blender. Okay, so let's get down to creating the model. First thing we'll do is make sure we're on the first layer. Not the second, not the third, but the first. This is where our main model will be. The first layer will depict the model scene in-game. It is best to decide a polygon limit before you start, and keep it in the back of your mind. The reason we want to keep a limit in the back of our mind is because modeling an asset for a game is much different than modeling any other kind of asset. Technology can only go so far, and though it's constantly improving, games still have their limits. For Space Engineers, I try to keep the polygons as low as I possibly can without affecting the overall look and detail of the model I'm creating. For the most part, I try to keep under 20,000 polys. Here you can see the polygons through triangles. This will differ slightly depending on the type of block I am creating. Obviously, if you're making a window, you don't need to go even close to that amount of polygons. But for something with plenty of moving parts, it might be closer to that limit. I would also suggest reducing the polygon count by removing unneeded edges or merging faces and deleting vertice doubles as often as you can. Just be sure the edges being deleted are not edges you will need to use later, as adding new edges will only give you more work. Another note is that your model is best to be created quadratic. Though the game will use triangles or triangle meshes, it's much easier to work with square or quadratic meshes. Once the model is finished, it takes no effort to convert the quads to triangles. In fact, you can ignore doing this altogether, as Hrag's add-on will automatically convert the model into a triangle mesh upon export. A quad mesh is easily converted into a tri-mesh, but not so easy to do it the other way around. Other practices to keep in mind is to never cross edges or overlap faces. You'll see the issue of overlapping faces when looking at the model in-game. For deformable models, try to use extra vertices and edge loops around the joints. Opt into extruding parts of an object over creating new objects whenever you can. Instead of creating another cylinder to place on top of the other cylinder, extrude the top face of the first cylinder. This will prevent you having to delete faces afterwards, and if you ever feel it needs to be a separate object, you can go into edit mode, select only the faces you want to separate, then use Ctrl P and then S. This will separate the selected faces into a new object. Much better than trying to align a completely new object. If you are planning to create an avatar or astronaut, do so with the character in the T-pose. A T-pose is a position where the arms are to the side, as if the avatar is wearing a big, bulky jacket or coat. This position allows easy viewing of the entire model for animating and rigging it. So now let's grab a cube. This will be the basis of our model for the purpose of this tutorial. So we're gonna grab this cube. We're gonna go into edit mode by pressing tab. And let's see, let me think for a second. What kind of object will we create for this tutorial? We want to make it simple. We don't want to make anything too complicated, because we want to have it simple enough that the fundamentals can be reached. So in that extent, let's make maybe a box. Yes, a box. Okay, we'll make a box, okay? So we're gonna grab this. This is very simple. We're gonna, now that we're in edit mode, we're gonna go Control Tab F so we can select faces. We're gonna right click on the top face. We're gonna go P and then S. Sorry, I made a mistake earlier. I told you to separate by doing Control P then S, but that is incorrect. All you have to do is P then S. So we're gonna undo what we did. Now we're gonna select our top face. We're gonna press P, not Control P, just P, and then S for selection. And now what that did, if we go into object mode, is we created a totally separate object on top of our main object. Okay. Now, we're gonna hide this top piece. Okay, and now we should not okay, let's select everything. We are remove doubles. Okay, because there's for some reason we have a face up here that shouldn't be here. Hide that. And delete that. As you can see, when we unhid everything, it's still there. So we are going to hide this again. Now we've got our box. So now the thing about our box is the normals. The outside will be viewed properly in the game, but the inside, because the normals are only facing one way, which is outwards. We'll increase this so you can see better. And as you can see, there's no faces on the inside. So to deal with the no faces, what we're gonna do, we're gonna go to this little icon here, the modifier or wrench. We're gonna add a modifier. We are gonna solidify our object here. And then we're just gonna apply it. Now what we did with solidifying our object is we basically gave it faces on any part of the object that is visible. So because we had no faces on the inside, it created faces, and it actually gave us a thickness for these faces. So now we've got our box. Now we're gonna go and unhide Alt H. We unhid our lid. We're gonna press 7 to go in the top view. We're gonna press 5 to go in ortho view. And if you scroll in, we're just gonna put our 3D cursor right here. Okay, so we got our 3D cursor just on the edge there. And what we're gonna do with our top piece selected, we're gonna go Control Alt Shift C, and then we're gonna go Origin to 3D cursor, and that is gonna put our little origin for this block right here. So now if I were to rotate this lid on the x-axis, it will open and close how we want it. That's exactly what we want to do with our box. Okay, so I'm going to right click to cancel the rotation. Now I'm also going to add a modifier to our lid, because as with our actual box, the lid only has a face on one side. So we're going to go ahead and solidify and apply. So now our lid has a bit of a thickness to it. Alright, so we've got a box. It's a simple box, but it will do for this tutorial. Okay, so once we are content with how our model looks, we can work on the textures. And to recap over important points within this episode, number 1, look at many videos and written tutorials to become comfortable with Blender. Number 2, watch others as they model and import import blend files to attempt recreating the models. Number 3, learn in as many ways as possible. Don't limit yourself to one learning method. Try to learn visually, hands-on, any which way you possibly can. Number 4, configure Blender to suit your common modeling needs and save the startup file. Number 5, look at different add-ons and use the add-ons you feel would quicken your process, such as Rigify, which allows quick rigging of a model. Number 6, set a poly limit and stay within that limit. Number 7, remove doubles, extra edges, and overlapping faces. Number 8, use a quad mesh as it is easier to work with than a triangle mesh. Number 9, don't cross edges, keep all your faces square. Number 10, opt into extruding and separating over introducing new objects. And number 11, if you are creating a character model, create it with a T-pose. This is going to wrap up episode number 3, creating a model. I hope this tutorial can prove to be very useful, and if you have any questions, don't be afraid to comment. If you wish to be notified of future streams and or videos, please follow. If you enjoyed the content provided, please like. If you wish to see mods in the works and become inspired, give advice, or just hang out, you can watch my mod and follow through at www.twitch.tv/Zanzikan. In our next modern tutorial, episode number 4, creating and applying textures, we'll create textures and I'll show you how they'll be applied to the model. This is Zanzikan signing out. Keep it real, keep it safe, and until next time.